everybody? It's your guy on the road with a live broadcast. Now, I'm doing this live broadcast and it's just going to be me solo in case somebody wants to listen to it actual right now. Obviously, this will be uploaded later as an episode. So if you're hearing this later, hey, we're back or I'm back. I'm trying to rebrand the podcast. It's the same as it was, and I'm still a truck driver and I still love to talk about the industry and the things that happen in our industry. But I also wanted the podcast to be a little different at the end of the day. I did want the podcast to resonate with actual tales from the road because at the end of the day, we all know the industry. If you're listening to this, if not, it's fine. But if you know about trucking, the industry is the industry, and there's plenty of podcasts that complain and cry about it. And I felt like, yes, we were interviewing great people. We had great people on the show. There was a lot of times where there was a lot of internet disruptions. Obviously, I'm on a different lane now. I like to do it live because you never know if somebody wants to listen to it as I'm talking and doing it. And of course, I want to bring it back to the basics. If you listen to the first episodes, I had professional episodes made that I did, edited myself with music and scary stuff. And it was more macabre. It was more Tales from the Road. It was where I wanted it to be. Not that it went somewhere different, but at the end of the day, I wanted it to be more about the macabre and the strange, the unusual, and all that. So the only way I can do the podcast and have people on the show is to do it live. So we will have other people on the show later, and we will be doing it live again. But instead of a co-host situation, it'll be more like a conversation piece. So let's just dive into it. Now, there will be episodes that I do make that will have like creepy music and cool little sound effects and jump scares and things like that. But remember, these tales are absolutely true. They absolutely happen to people, and they absolutely happen to me as well. And I try not to embellish or lie, and I try to be absolutely forthright of my experiences on this road. Because at the end of the day, I think it's interesting if you want, you know, the fictional deal, there are things in places for that. But I like the nonfiction because it makes it more real. And it also makes you think what's out here on this road. We're just going to dive into something that's already been around. And if you don't know, or you're not from America, or you don't understand, um, if you're listening from overseas, I like to talk about the I-5 killer. So there, there is a lot of there is a lot of truckers that are out here in America, and there's 3-4 million of us, and or more. And so things happen on the road, and there are people that are truckers and do commit heinous acts, and there are people that are not truckers that prey on the highway of the truck highway. And we all know as truckers we should be vigilant for that. So let's jump in and let's tell you a little bit about the I-5 killer. One of my favorite scary things to discuss because hey, it's real, it's terrible, it's tragic, and prayers to the family and victims of this killer. But it is a terrifying reality and it keeps you awake at night. In the early 1980s, the I-5 corridor from Washington State to California was haunted by Randall Woodfield. He was a handsome ex Green Bay Packers draft pick. Dude was an NFL player, basically, who appeared to be a normal, charming man. Behind that facade was a psychopath who raped, robbed, and murdered at least 44 people, striking terror along the West Coast highways. Known as the I-5 killer or the I-5 bandit, Woodfield lived a double life. He would often act as a friendly acquaintance or a charming stranger before turning incredibly violent, targeting women and their homes and sometimes victims along the interstate route. And a lot of those victims, some of them were thrown off of overpasses, stuff like that. Woodfield was an award-winning athlete. He appeared as a Playgirl candidate. If you don't know what Playgirl is, it's a women's magazine, allowing him to easily charm victims and police. His hunting grounds was specifically cruise the I-5, committing violent assaults and murders in towns like Beaverton, Oregon, and throughout the Washington, California area. He was known for knife point robberies that began in 1975, escalating to multiple murders between 1980 and 1981. The arrest. Police struggled when they arrested this guy because they did not want to believe someone that looked like him could be responsible. Because this guy was like your everyday American hero looking guy or whatever. But in 1981, in March, he was caught and eventually convicted of the murder of a woman named Sherry Holt and the attempted murder of Beth Wilmot. He was sentenced to life in prison and plus 90 years. And his story remains one of the most chilling examples of a serial killer hiding in plain sight. Now, we all know about Ted Bundy and stuff, but it just strikes me because this is, the I-5 killer, this is someone who literally went on the interstate and preyed on people. At least 44 victims this guy had. And so, in general, it was terrifying to think that you could be on the highway, you might be pulled over to change a tire or something, and it turned into be horrible ordeal for you. Investigators traced calling cards recorded to pay phones near several crime scenes, and a search of his Springfield, Oregon apartment revealed a 32 caliber shell casing and a roll of tape that matched evidence found at the scene of his victims. So it's like this guy would prey on you. So imagine you're driving and somebody breaks down, and this is the 1970s and 80s. I mean, people still were friendly enough, and people would pull over. And this is why your mom says don't pull over for hitchhikers, because people would pull over and they would actually literally ask you, hey, do you need help? Do you need this? Do you need that? And this guy would prey on you and he would hurt you and he would kill you and rob you. So at the end of the day, understand that when you're driving on the road and you want to be a helpful person and you want to literally help somebody, just remember that that person could be a massive, massive serial killer. And I know that's crazy, but you had the Green River killer, and he stayed over there on the Green River, and he literally messed with dead bodies and everything. And you know, there's killers that troll these highways. There was a truck driver that was actually a serial killer as well, and you know, he literally had a woman chained in his car. And so the trucker had the woman chained and the police officer literally heard the woman struggling and walked up, and this guy had killed like 50 people. And he was a killer. We'll get to him one day and we'll tell his story. Not to glamour this person, but at the end of the day, this is scary stuff, especially when you're highway late at night. You see somebody broke down, you want to help them, then boom, there's a knife or a gun. So just be aware of that, especially if you come into America. They got cell phones. It's the future. AAA, do not pull over, right? This comes from Reddit, and I love trolling Reddit. And I have a forum up, and we go over stuff in Reddit, and people write things in. And so this is from a person off of Reddit that remains anonymous. Maybe a bit off the mark, but it still scared the crap out of me. I was headed west on I-76 here in Denver, just cruising along about 70 miles an hour. Out of nowhere, I saw a massive, almost solid cloud of what looked like to be dirt coming at me. I'd say it was at least 20 feet wide and 10 feet tall. I scanned ahead of me, but couldn't see any vehicle that it could have came from. With nowhere to go, I slowed down and I took the hit, hoping there wasn't anything big enough to come through the windshield or jack my truck up. He's an owner operator. Okay, we're talking about a semi truck here. It was pretty loud as I smashed through it. The instant I hit it, I know it wasn't dirt though. I immediately hit the washers because I couldn't see a damn thing through all of the carnage of my windshield, and it was painted with guts. It turned out it was bees, freaking huge bees that sounded like rocks when they hit. I can't even imagine seeing that swarm, if I was walking by, they would kill the crap out of anything in their pack. So truck driver's driving, sees a cloud of dirt, and I've never seen this. And it's a cloud of bees, a swarm of bees. And he hits it so hard it sounds like rocks and stuff like that. And wow, could you imagine that? Got another story. This person was driving near Las Vegas around 3 a.m. They had been following a few black SUVs along the highway. They had Nevada plates and they were single digit numbers. Suddenly, they all pulled off the highway down a dirt path. There was no mile marker or cactus that would indicate the path. It was just dirt. After pulling off the road, they turned their lights off. I didn't stick around. It was very creepy. These are things in Nevada and over there near the Burning Man area, too. There's a lot of weird stuff like that happens all the time. And so people literally see these black SUVs that go off into the desert and they don't know why they're going off. They just turn off their lights. This has happened so many times. I have a story about that. I went to the valley in California and I was going into this one place. Can't remember what it was called, near the border, and a bunch of black cars got in front of me, behind me, and around me. I didn't know what they were doing. I was traveling through the city or whatever, and come to find out, it was the fact that when I pulled over at the truck stop, the guy at the truck stop said that it was because of all the people stealing and robbing and taking and looting up trucks. So these people were escorting me to the city so I wouldn't, you know, basically have gotten robbed. So there's a lot of stuff that happens out here on the road. I was literally driving the other night in Hartley, Texas. And as I'm driving in Hartley, Texas, I am going down a place where there's pronghorns. And pronghorns are, to me, they're just deer, but they're not deer. They're like a cross between an antelope and a caribou or something. I mean, people know what they are. They're called pronghorns. So as I'm driving down this road, which Hartley, Texas was founded in the 1880s, it's ancient, it's got a lot of history, there's a lot of stuff that happens. I see this thing in the middle of the road. And so I don't know what it is, and I stop. And it's so black that you could literally be 100 yards from someone coming towards you with their bright lights on, and it still wouldn't hurt your eyes. The blackness just swallows the absolute light. It is so dark, it's terrifying. As I'm standing there, I see this creature, and I don't know what it is. I have a photo of it. We are not going to do the website, the talesfromtheroadmedia.com, but we are going to do the Facebook page, which is Tales from the Road Media on Facebook. And it's a group, and it's Tales from the Road Media Facebook group. So if you want to see the photo, check it out there. So I see this thing, and I see a person in the middle of the road, but it's like standing behind but above this creature or this pronghorn or whatever you want to call it. And so I am freaking out that the this thing is a person staying in the middle of the road. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's somebody standing there, but it looks like a shadow guy, right? So I'm sitting there like, okay, I don't know. But there's this pronghorn and it kind of starts to transform into an individual. I call the photo the transition. If you look at this photo, you can see a person's outline as this creature is transforming into a pronghorn, and it scurries off into the side of the right hand side of the road into the ditch and goes under a fence and disappears into the blackness. But I have a nice S25 phone. It takes 4K photos. I have it set at 200 megapixels. I have a lot of photos that I put up there on my Tales from the Road Media group, Tales from the Road Media group on Facebook. And so I have a really good phone, and my phone doesn't as ever blur. It never blurs. It never blurs. Well, the phone was blurry and it wouldn't take this picture the right way, but it wasn't blurry around it. It was just blurry on the creature or the animal or whatever. So I felt like, you know, I don't know, maybe this is a skinwalker. So the picture's up on the Tales from the Road Media Facebook group. If you go on Facebook, just look at Tales from the Road Media and you'll see the picture of the creature. And I could have sworn it was got back down on all fours after it stood up. And if you look in the picture behind the creature or the entity or whatever you want to call it, you can see a person standing there kind of looking at me. I have not adjusted the photo or did hue on it or changed the saturation or anything because I'm kind of terrified to, I don't know, I'm kind of terrified to see what it was in the photo. But I will put that up and I will do that right now, as a matter of fact. I will put that photo up in on the Facebook page, which it should already be there. But it's very scary and very weird. But Tales from the Road Media Facebook group will have that photo on it. So FYI, if you guys want to see it, it's there. My friend also has a Facebook chat called Chuck and Muddies, and it's in there as well. But there's skinwalkers and there's ancient evil and there's things out here that we cannot explain. And I don't know, man. I see this stuff out here all the time and I don't know what it is. And I don't know why it's there. And I don't know what the purpose of it is other than to terrify me. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you have to understand that there are things that go bump in the night and you have to accept it or not accept it. And out here in this vast area and this unforgiving land, there are things out here that we just cannot understand or explain. We can't understand or explain. You can't understand or explain in America how ancient it is. The Native Americans were here first. What's up, guy? Hi, Mona Lisa. Nice to see you in the studio. You cannot understand how ancient America really is. Yes, Europe is ancient. I mean, the whole world's ancient, right? But Native Americans were here. Dinosaurs were here. There were things that were already here. There were things that were already here before we ever got here. Before Europeans ever settled in America, there were ancient things that roamed America. The Native Americans talk about the red man or the Sasquatch, and there was different sects of Sasquatch. Some Sasquatch were dancers and friendly and singers. Some Sasquatch were evil and they would take the women and children at night or when the men would go hunting. So America has a very ancient and dark history, especially with Roanoke and Croatoan and Jamestown, St. Augustine, Florida, where a bunch of Native Americans were slaughtered by the Spanish at Fort Matanza and other areas. So when I see this skinwalker creature thing, this isn't the first time I've seen it. And in Texas, they're real prevalent. And if you go to Tales from the Road Media Facebook group, you can see that there's a person emerging or transitioning from this animal. So it's a real odd deal. It's like kind of like the Ranger Rick episode, right? In episode one, where we would talk when I was doing the whole story, and Ranger Rick just appeared out of nowhere. So at the end of the day, just know that uh, it's a real creepy deal to see this stuff happen in the road. And other countries, I don't know people from other countries. I know I've met people from other countries, but there are other Yahwehs and there are other Hanuts and there are Arendo Pendex, and there's other creatures that come from other countries that I'm sure truckers see, like Australian truckers, Canadian truckers, European truckers. I'm sure they see these same things, even Saudi Arabia, as far as Israel and all that. I'm sure there's creatures and cryptids and stuff like that that we have just scratched the surface. But I would love it if you go to Tales from the Road Media at gmail.com. You can definitely hit me up if you ever want to be on the show and talk about this stuff, man, because I love that I drive a truck and I see all this strange stuff. I love that when I drive a vehicle for as long as I do, you can see the stuff that nobody sees because everything's sleeping. Because the lands are ancient and darkness roams the lands, and there's stuff that roams the lands that's been around for eternity. And so at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, are you crazy? Is there a God, or is it just your imagination? Because if there's a God, there's a devil. And if there's a devil, there's a God. And if it's not your imagination and it's not the devil and it's not God, then what is it? Or is it evil? There is things that we can't explain on this planet. There's UFOs, there's creatures, there's swamp men, there's chupacabras in America. There's all kinds of stuff. And I know that we used to talk about a lot of industry problems and this and news reports, and but the whole point of this podcast was Tales from the Road. It's we're supposed to talk about what happens on the road and the spooky stuff, the stuff nobody wants to talk about, the stuff that people think you're crazy for. Oh yeah, you just have a big wild imagination. And so at the end of the day, I want you guys to know there's some creepy stuff out here. This comes from 7 years ago. Okay. A good friend of mine told me this story years ago. He was a stereotypical old big bad trucker. I've seen some weird stuff with him driving in South Texas along the border. He never batted an eye, but while telling me this story, he had goosebumps and a concerned expression, which this guy is about the equivalent of a trembling lip in shit stained pants. I'll tell you the story in the first person as he told it to me. Years ago, in the late 90s, I was on my way from the house in Central Texas, heading to Laredo to pick up a load. It was early in the morning, around 4 or 5 a.m. I had just come off a string of days at home, so I had a bunch of home time. So I know I wasn't tired. I wasn't sleepy, and I was very relaxed. I'm on one of those two-lane winding back roads in the absolute middle of bum nowhere when I see something on the side of the road at the edge of my high beams. At first, I just thought it was roadkill. So it's usually the case. So I slow down a little bit to just see what it was. And as I get closer, I see that it is roadkill. And there's someone crouching over the deer carcass. And I remember thinking, as I got closer, I'm thinking, this guy's either taking the antlers as a trophy or he's just sick. As I got closer, I can still see that this is gonna freak you guys out. I get closer to this deer, to this roadkill, and this guy's eating the deer. He's pulling chunks of meat from the stomach and bringing them up to his face. At this point, he stops mid motion and looks up at me, not my truck, but at me, straight into my eyes. He stands up, and that's when I see that it's this huge brown and covered in hair. And I remember thinking at this point, oh my God, this thing's standing on the this thing standing on the tiny shoulder looking at me. And we have a lot of reports of dogmen in this area. Dogmen are a form of cryptoid or Sasquatch. By this point, maybe 3 seconds have passed, and I'm about to the point where he's standing in the road and he's standing still and he's looking right at me. I didn't even think of stopping. I was going slow, but in fact, I'm starting to lay on it and I'm shifting gears. I'm getting out of there. As I'm passing it, it's looking at me again, not at the truck, but looking at me through the driver's side windshield, right at me through my soul as eyes pierce me. He's obviously had the intelligence to know there's a driver in there and knows where I'm sitting. As I start to pass him, I can see its head above the hood and an old needle nose Pete, old truck design, where the hood goes straight out from the windshield, known for being tall and difficult to see around. You can't see over the hood because everybody sits low at them. This thing is a giant. I remember seeing what looked like a human intelligence in its eyes. It scares me. Sorry for the text. It's just worth the story to share. That's the story that was written to us over here. So, there again, guys in Texas, driving, minding his own business on one of these 54s or 387s or 287 back roads, sees some roadkill, sees something standing over it, doesn't really know what it is, and it's a large 6 to 7 foot tall, wide thing eating this deer. And you can see the blood coming out of it. You can see it's consuming the flesh. And this guy is, out of there. But we've always said a trucker's going to be the one to hit the Bigfoot, right? So, guys, that's all the time for the day. I appreciate the time that you listen to this podcast. It'll get more refined with time. We'll have people on the show, but we're going to bring you tales from the road, good or bad, light or fair. Because, in my opinion, these are things that will keep you awake at night, but also help you get through the day or get through the drive. And once again, I'm not a George Norrie, but I love this stuff. I'm like a nerd at heart. I love Star Wars and Star Trek and sci-fi and science fiction. And why can't I believe that there's magic in the world? There's plenty of things on this earth we don't understand. There's plenty of things that come from the earth that we don't understand. There's plenty of times where creatures emerge that we thought were extinct and they're here. So at the end of the day, don't think you're alone. The truth is out there, just like, the famous show X Files said. Don't think you're alone. Don't think that there's no things that go bump in the night. Don't whistle in the Appalachian Mountains and don't ever go to something that calls your name. Be careful, guys. Keep your eyes vigilant, especially with the earth changing, global warming, and the stars and different things that are happening that haven't happened in a few thousand years. A lot of this stuff's coming alive, especially with the fact that everybody's taken over. What do you mean? All this development, all this land, all this stuff that's getting cultivated, which there's plenty of land. Well, there's not that much. There is plenty of land. But as we develop new parts of this land, we will always see these new creatures emerge. Until next time, guys, this has been your guy on the road saying survive and stay alive. Till next time. Peace.